Okay, today we are highlighting Willow Park, Texas, and we're going to be talking about the top 4 pros and cons of living in Willow Park. Now, if this is your first time on the channel and you want to make sure you know everything there is to know about living in Aledo, Texas, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the bell for notifications so you can be kept up to date with everything that's going on in the Aledo area. My name is Jared with Living in Aledo, Texas, and I get calls and texts all the time from people just like yourself who are thinking about moving their family to the Aledo area, and I love it. So whether you're thinking about moving next week or next year, all my contact information is in the description box below. Feel free to reach out however is most convenient for you, and I'm looking forward to helping you make a smooth move to Aledo. Now, before I get started and jump into the list, I do want to kind of point out that a lot of the cities that fall under the Aledo ISD area will have similar pros and cons as an overall whole. So I'm really focusing down on Willow Park specifically. For example, I'm not using Aledo ISD or the Aledo schools as a particular pro of living in Willow Park. So Willow Park is included in my channel in general because it feeds into the Aledo area. So we've done lots of videos on Aledo ISD and how great it is. We've done videos on kind of the distance from downtown Fort Worth or maybe to the airport. So I'm actually trying to make sure that rather than giving you a general pro and con of the overall area, that I'm really giving you some specific content around the pros and cons of Willow Park, maybe as compared to Aledo or Hudson Oaks or Weatherford or some of the other areas around the Aledo ISD area and what we're talking about. Because if you're already looking at the Aledo ISD area and the schools are what's drawing you, you want to know the differences in the areas that you're going to get the schools anyways. So stick around. I got a couple of really interesting pros and cons of Willow Park specifically. If you have any questions, make sure you put those in the comments below and let's hop into it. Okay, so the number one pro of choosing to live in the city of Willow Park is that the average sales price is in the $450 to $480 range, which is close to $200,000 less than choosing to live in the greater Aledo area and looking for the average home in those areas. Now, why is that? Are you getting the exact same thing? Not really. Willow Park has a higher percentage, or really the better way to say it, is a smaller percentage of new construction homes, therefore a higher percentage of older homes that have been in the area built in the 70s and the 80s. One of the benefits is obviously you're getting a lower purchase price. Some of them have been updated. Many of them have been maintained well, but you are still getting land, maybe an acre. So I have a client right now buying a home in Willow Park, and the average sales price in that neighborhood is really under $400,000. So he's getting a 2,200 square foot home on an acre with an outbuilding that has power to it, and it's built like an office. It has a slab, it has like regular construction, so it has insulated walls, it has a roof with shingles on it. So it's not just a shed, but it is a true outbuilding. Doesn't have plumbing, but he's getting this thing for sub $400,000. He's gonna put some work into it. He's gonna do some cosmetic updates, but it's a really solid home. This being one of the pro is that lower price point. It comes with maybe some work, but if you're wanting to be in the Aledo ISD area and you're willing to focus on Willow Park, you got some older homes that you can get for $100,000 or $200,000 less than some other areas. Now, there are still some new construction. We'll talk about it in a second, but pro number one is just that the average sales price is like 200 grand less than the rest of the Aledo area. Okay, and pro number two, which might come as a surprise to a lot of people, is that Willow Park does have its own police department. You're like, well, why is that a pro, Jared? Well, Aledo, the city, does not have its own police department. So Willow Park is the second largest city in Parker County. Now, it's a lot smaller than Weatherford, but because it does have that size and that critical mass, it actually has its own police department. One of the neat things is that it also has a Citizens Police Academy. Now, I have not participated in this one. Like I've mentioned in other videos, I live outside city limits, so I'm not even totally certain that I would be able to, since I'm not like a taxpayer to Willow Park. But I have participated in Citizens Police Academies when I was in high school. They were really cool, they were really interesting. You got to learn about what these guys did. I got to go on a ride along. I mean, I was 18 on a 12-hour ride along overnight. I felt like a little boy because I fell asleep at about 5 a.m. I couldn't even last the whole time. But there were some really cool things that we got to do and learn and see. And so Willow Park does have, like I said, its own police force, and it has the police academy, which citizens can participate in. And the interesting fact, not a pro or a con right now, but while Aledo doesn't have a police department, Aledo ISD does have its own police department. So it's tasked with, all of the Aledo ISD area. They have school resource officers and they have a presence at all like the sporting events and everything. So if you are driving around, you will see police cars that say Aledo, but they're gonna say Aledo ISD because they are not part of the city government. They fall underneath the school district. Okay, now pro number 3 might be a little bit contentious because some people might think this is a con, but Willow Park actually has most of the new commercial development along 20 going on. So there's really not a lot of new commercial development, but what there is mostly in the Willow Park area. So south of 20 off Ranch House Road, that's where you have the Starbucks, the McDonald's, the Fuzzy's Tacos, the Railhead Barbecue. You have a few small commercial strip centers where you have doctor's offices, dentist offices. You have a brand new bank that just went in. You have the Brookshires that's been there for a while, a long while. But there are still developing commercial development off Ranch House Road south of 20. And then north of 20, if you go to the FM5 exit, so you hit the exit, that's where you're gonna see the district in Willow Park North, where that's been around in a few years. The district is brand new, it's not totally complete yet, but you have restaurants and some shopping, and honestly, almost all of the new commercial development has been Willow Park. So I know some people don't like seeing that, but that is a benefit and it is an additional amenity that local people get to use. So if we want to go get breakfast, we can go to Sunny Street Cafe. If I want some great cuts of meat, I can go to the district butcher. There's going to be live events at the district. So that is a benefit. And again, I'm mentioning mostly commercial development, but the reserves at Trinity is one of the few, it might be the only new construction residential neighborhood happening in Willow Park. So you can, like I mentioned, that the average price in Willow Park is $450, $480. The reserves at Trinity, they do have that new construction homes, like I mentioned in the last video again, in the 600 plus range. So you can get that brand new construction. It's gonna be on a smaller lot and it's gonna be more expensive, but if that's what you're looking for, Willow Park does have it. It's just gonna be kind of a similar neighborhood to what you might find in Aledo and then the greater Aledo area when you're looking at the new neighborhoods. New commercial development with new options going in, and that's gonna be a pro number 3 for me, even though some longtime residents may not like seeing that. Okay, now pro number 4, you may have a hard time believing, but the city of Willow Park recently reduced its own tax rate on the property in the city. So if you're unfamiliar with how property taxes work in Texas in general, each county has its own tax assessor, and there's typically 5 to 7 separate taxing authorities that set their own tax rates and are part of your overall tax bill. So you're gonna have your school district, your college district, your city, you're gonna have something related to your county, then maybe emergency services, and that's gonna be the general gist of the different taxing authorities. So when I say that the Willow Park, the city, reduced its tax rate, they didn't necessarily reduce the overall large tax rate. They reduced their single line item when it comes to your property taxes. And now they actually did a pretty significant reduction. Without going into all the details, you can call it a mill rate. It's typically a certain amount of cents per $100. So their tax rate was 53 cents per $100 valuation. That's not super important. What is of interest is that they reduced the city's tax rate on your home and your property by 26%. So they slashed their portion of the tax rate. Now that didn't make a 25% reduction in your overall tax bill, but every little bit helps. And this is a rare instance, a government authority having a surplus and actually basically giving that money back to its constituents. So let's not get political with it, but you don't often see this. Normally, if there's a surplus, it gets spent and they budget to spend that money the next year. So I gotta give big props to the city of Willow Park for cutting the tax rate, but stick around to the end of the cons. I got another side of the coin on that. Okay, and as you are well aware, no place is perfect, so stick around. There are some interesting cons of the Willow Park area, so put in the comments if you have any questions specifically about these cons and how they might affect you if you're looking to purchase in the Willow Park area in the near future. All right, and now con number one is that not all of Willow Park is in Aledo ISD. So Willow Park is included in what I talk about because it falls into the greater Aledo area, which typically is like the Aledo ISD boundaries, which we've talked about in previous videos. But not all of Willow Park falls under Aledo ISD. Some of it actually goes to Weatherford ISD. So if you are looking at Willow Park, you want to make sure you double check where your specific property feeds into. Now, most of Willow Park does. If I had to give you a general area that did not, if you look at Lake Weatherford and then you go straight east from those neighborhoods, don't feed into Aledo ISD. So generally the rest of it, like Weatherford and anything south of Lake Weatherford, is gonna go to Aledo. So just double check that. That's one thing to note. You're not 100% safe buying anywhere in Willow Park if being in Aledo ISD is important to you. Okay, now con number two, if you do any Googling about what people are upset about with Willow Park or what they don't like, is you're gonna see people comment about the roads. And so, again, I'm all over Willow Park all the time, and there are not any significant issues. It's not like there's potholes everywhere, you're not breaking your rims, you're not destroying your car. But there are some areas where the city, on its limited budget, because it's a small city, has trouble just keeping up with like street maintenance. So do I think this is a reason to avoid the city as a whole? Absolutely not. Are you gonna see people not be super pleased occasionally? Yes, but the city does work to get to those things as fast as they can. It's just, this is a smaller city in a county that is not a major metro center, which is desirable. That's why a lot of people move out here. But with that, the county takes care of the county roads, the cities try to take care of the city roads, and Willow Park does what it can. But it's something you might notice here or there that maybe when there is an issue, it takes a little longer than you might hope to get touched up and fixed, but it's a reality of the situation. Okay, now con number three is water issues. And most of this has been alleviated. It was a pretty big deal in the past, and I want to comment on it and what you can expect going forward. Now, what many of you may not know if you're not Texas native is that there's like, I hesitate to say 0 man-made lakes in Texas. That's not technically true. The few that are really of no real size and certainly not local to us. And so the city of Willow Park has 25 water wells that they use to service the city. Well, a number of years ago, it became apparent that those were not going to be sufficient to meet the demand that the city and the city residents put on it. Now, it's not talking about like the minimal, we don't have drinking water, but you know, there's a lot of yard watering that goes on in Texas because people like the grass to be green. It takes a lot of water to do that in our summers. So Willow Park and Hudson Oaks came together and they basically made a deal with the city of Fort Worth to bring water into their cities. So there's no like shortage issues at the time. Like that's not the concern. But your water bills in Willow Park might be slightly higher because Willow Park had to make a deal with Fort Worth, and so there's probably basically an intermediary charge, like an upcharge to what a Fort Worth resident might pay for Fort Worth water. And Aledo's kind of in the same boat. If you get on any of the Aledo local Facebook groups, you're gonna hear people not very happy with their water bills. So that's not a thing that's unique to Willow Park, but it is something to be aware of, that Willow Park supplements its own water supply, so it has its own 25 wells with water from the city of Fort Worth. And that's how they fixed the actual issue, but that leads to some maybe slightly higher water bills for its residents. Okay, now con number 4 is actually directly connected to pro number 4 that I mentioned earlier, and it's that the city of Willow Park is about to increase its tax rate. Like, oh my gosh, how can you have a pro that they reduced it and the con is that they are increasing it? Where are we at on this? So basically, like I mentioned, like a 26% decrease. That was basically a 15 cent per $100 decrease in taxes. Now they're adding back 3.5 cents. So you're still, maybe that's like an 18% below where we started originally. That's even after the increase. So they took away 15 cents, but they're adding back 3.5. Unfortunately, the city of Willow Park is growing. It is looking for additional tax revenues to meet the demands of its citizens, but you are still a good bit lower than where it started from a couple years ago. So I just can't tell you the positives without the negatives. I don't want there to be any sort of like feeling like I misled anybody. Tax rates are going up this year or going into next year, but they're still a good bit below where they were previously. Okay, well that wraps up the top 4 pros and cons of living in Willow Park. So if you've been thinking about the Aledo area and now you may have some more specific questions about Willow Park, or I said something that created some additional questions, put those questions in the comment section below. I always check those, happy to answer. And remember, whether you're thinking about moving next week or next year, all my contact information is in the description box below, and I'm looking forward to helping you make a smooth move to the Aledo area.